And the million faces formed together, made for elevation. And the soldier won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping and the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. We're rising up, rising up, we're rising up, rising up, we're rising up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us.
And welcome everyone to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. I am glad you're here. It's a special episode. Obviously, we're usually here on Sunday nights, but we're here today on Wednesday because we couldn't get enough in on Sunday night. And unfortunately, we have other things we need to talk about this Sunday coming up, as in mayor debate. We have the Board of Ed, I believe, is debating tomorrow, if I remember correctly. So we got more stuff to talk about on Sunday. So we had to squeeze in another special episode today to make sure we covered everything. So for those of you who are new to the show, I am Joe Lamb, your host, your guiding light through all the nonsense that candidates are telling us over the last couple months. We read the stitches on the fastball better than anybody, I think, around. And I do my best to make sure that you are as much of an informed voter as possible going into the November election. Now, again, as always, I always tell you, I don't want you to take what I say as gospel, and therefore go take what you learn here and go test it and research it for yourself. But again, this show does work best when we are all engaging together. So if you want to call in 203-805-2520, or if you want to email straighttalkjv@gmail.com. And of course, if you're on social media, all the social media platforms, you can go right into the chat and grab it, and we can see what you're saying from there. So let's dive in, because if anyone remembers, last week we talked, on Sunday, we talked about the council debate. We talked about Board of Ed funding. We talked about educational funding. We also talked about the downtown and what their visions, what the candidates' visions are for downtown. And then, of course, what elected officials are saying now compared to what they've been doing over the years. So, but I don't want to rehash too much of that. I want to really dive into the next topic that came up on the debate, which I thought was, again, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Everybody, all those questions that the panel gave were good, thought out questions. I don't think any of them were out of bounds. I don't think any of them were trying to be gotcha questions. I thought they were all pretty good. So kudos again to the Record Journal and Chamber of Commerce for actually putting questions forward that actually you should know about. You should know the position of the candidates on where they stand on these issues. Again, Board of Ed, spending, downtown. We're going to get to the perception and juvenile crime. We're going to get into wasteful spending. And then we're going to get into who's the most fiscally responsible party in the city. And we're going to examine what elected officials said during the debate compared to what they've actually been doing over not only years, but decades in the city of Meriden. So again, let's dive on in here. I did go ahead and verify that all of my sound bites are in the correct order and that every button is what it's supposed to be. So I did take my time and do. I don't know what happened on Sunday, why my numbers were off from what my panel here says, but it is correct. I promise. So we don't have to keep doing different ones. So the next topic that came up was the perception of Meriden. And do you feel if we're getting a bad rap? So let's hear the question.
Yes. What do you feel are the factors contributing to the rise in auto crimes and other criminal activity involving juveniles, and what can the city council do about it?
My name is Mike Zakazewski, and I'm a lifelong resident of Meriden. Recently, I worked for the city as a police officer. I retired after 31 years as a captain. So juvenile crimes have been on the rise for years all over. I clearly remember when the head of the juvenile division came in to start doing training in the police department. He was the one that said straight out, this changing the age, changing the crimes, it's not going to work. Okay, you're going to see an increase in, like he had a crystal ball. So Meriden Police does a great job for what they can, okay? But part of this has to come from the community, okay? We need community engagement to work with the police department. I was the commander, the Neighborhood Initiative Unit. That was one of our main goals, to get the community involved, to let us know who's going out there. And we have to hold some parents accountable when a 12-year-old's out stealing a car at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Table. So I completely agree that public safety is a collaboration between law enforcement and the community. You're going to hear, I know, everybody. I've been talking to a lot of police officers over the last few weeks, and all you hear are rave reviews about our current chief and the leadership and the culture he's creating. I believe we have a subject matter expert in that position that we all trust. So let's give him the tools and the resources he needs to address the problem. There's also a state component where we have to push our state delegation to do something about it. But I am open, I know we keep discussing it, but we have experts, we have law enforcement officials that have techniques, they have resource, connections. There's a regional task force that's been developed with communities to the south of us. And I think we just need to create an environment where we trust our experts and we give them the resources they need to succeed. And thank you.
I 100% agree with Joe, is that we do need to let the experts take care of it, and we do have to support the experts. But to his right was the one person in this city that has tried to chop the legs off of our police department at every turn, and that's Sonia Jelks. And the way she was looking at him, I thought she wanted to smack him, because I don't think she agreed with his answer at all. But if that's what he truly believes, then yes, he's telling you exactly what you need to do. You need to vote people like Sonia Jelks out. You need to vote people like Mike Rohde out. They are the worst things for our police department. With their whole CRB, again, let the experts take care of it, as Joe said. That was Joe Scaramuzzo, who's running for Area 2. It's the one part of the things he said that actually made sense. And he didn't flip-flop on it. We have experts. They are our police departments. When something goes wrong, we have experts. We don't need a CRB. We have experts in the state's attorney's office. We have experts in the state police. We have experts that will take care of the things that need taken care of. God forbid a police officer should get out of line or something catastrophic happens. So everything he said was accurate. If you just stay out of the way. And again, he just needed to look to his right. And as he was saying that, say that to her. Because she is number one culprit of trying to knock our police department at every turn. Now, of course, he didn't mention anything about juvenile crime. And again, Mike Zacharewski, again, if I had to pick one person that did outstanding, and if I had to give an A to, it was Zacharewski. And I'll if we have time, I'll give everybody a grade. I'll go down the list and I'll give everybody a grade on how I think they did. Because I think, again, while you don't get in depth in here on these debates, you do gain a sense of what a candidate is about and how they can conduct themselves in a city council meeting. You know, and I think that's why these debates are actually pretty good, which is why I always suggest that everybody watch them. But Zachary was 100% correct. We do have a problem. And I think what really should have got a standing ovation is when he said, when you have a 12-year-old out stealing cars at 2 o'clock in the morning, the parents should be held responsible. And you've heard me say it many a times on this show. At what point do we sit there and say, all right, parents, when these kids are being, arrested for stealing a car, released to their parents 3 hours later, and then they're back out in the streets the same night getting rearrested, yes, the parents should be held responsible. If the kid doesn't go to school, the parents are held responsible. If the kids don't do X, Y, Z, the parents are held responsible. But yet, we find that when they go out and commit crimes, well, it's not the parents' fault. No. Somebody has to be held accountable for the way their children are acting. And when your kid is a thug, stealing cars repeatedly, they and you need to be held responsible for it. I know a lot of people don't want to say that. And I'm glad Mike said it. Because he's 100% correct. And I agree again with Joe. We need to give them the resources to do their job. And I believe that Chief Rosado, he does a great job with what he has. I do believe that he does need to work more and more with our state and federal partners to help ease the crime that's going on in the state, especially when it comes to these ATVs, especially when it comes to these street takeovers. We need to see collaboration, and I think we have, especially with the street takeover, where the state police have jumped in and said, okay, well, we'll sit there and look over the film, and maybe we can identify some of these people, and they have, and there's been arrests being made. So that's great. But I think, again, with all these issues we talk about, to me, it starts in one place again, and that's in the home. The breakdown of the American family is the number one reason and the number one contributor to juvenile crime, violent crime, all sorts of crimes. It starts in the house. But again, if we look at the numbers and where they've been from the 70s to now, when the New Deal was done, we disincentivized having a family. And we made it financially advantageous to have a single parent home. That's a fact. All the numbers show that. But when it comes down to our policing here in the city, I agree with Joel. We need to let the experts deal with it. And that's not Sonia Jelks. That's not Mike Rohde. That's not Cortez. That's not Tomasetti. It is Chief Rosado and his commanding officers. They are the ones that will handle this. And then we, as citizens, will hold them accountable if they don't do a good job. Because we will contact our representatives and then have them act. So, again, a great question. And again, when Joe talked about, getting the state delegation to do something, listen, they've already patted themselves on the back. Anyone remember that last year? That they passed a juvenile crime bill, and literally the day that it started on October 1st, on October 4th, we had 4 kids, leading police on joyrides, stealing cars. And if anyone remembers, they almost ran over policemen. I believe it was on Randolph. It was either on Randolph or Lindsay over there. They almost ran over police officers, where police officers had to jump on the hoods of the car. The state delegation doesn't want to do anything. The state delegation came in. Remember, if anyone remembers this, maybe like 3 months ago, me and Mike Quinn were on a thread online, and we were talking about juvenile crime. And he turned around and he goes, "Well, we need to study the issue, and we need to hold a public hearing. So we can't go into special session," because I had called for a special session to go in there and handle this. And he came back as, we can't have a special session because the public hasn't had a public hearing on it yet. So we don't really know where we want to go with it. It's like, wait a minute. I think the public has spoken. If you go on any social media, the public has spoken. We're all outraged by the extreme high rates of auto crimes and thefts and break-ins. The people have been speaking. So the fact that you can't go do something about it because you didn't have a public hearing is ridiculous. But yet you were able to go into special session to put a new Supreme Court justice on the Connecticut Supreme Court. There was no public hearings. There was no this, there was no that. You just went and did it. But yet when it comes to the safety and security of the people you represent, that's where our state delegation stands. On top of it, if we take your advice, Joe, and say let the experts handle it, the police accountability bill is an absolute disaster. Is it an absolute disaster? And the resources we are giving the police department, funding-wise, over 50% of it is going to training so they could get into compliance with the police accountability bill. This is what happens when you let politicians try to micromanage the police departments. And this, again, micromanage across the state. Because this isn't just a Meriden issue. Juveniles know very well that they can do whatever they want across this state. Which is why you're seeing a lot more crimes even in their neighboring, where you wouldn't see it, like Wallingford, North Haven, Brantford, Berlin. You're starting to see auto crimes go up in all the towns. I mean, there's not a week that goes by that we don't see in the Record Journal, the New Haven Register, the Hartford Courant, about all of the juveniles committing crimes in the cities and towns. But yet, again, they're arrested and they're put right back out on the streets to their parents. So, again, at some point, when do we hold the parents accountable for what their children are doing? We hold them accountable for everything else except for this, because nobody wants to be labeled as this or that. So it was just very interesting. All right, so that was actually the wrong one that I didn't want to do, even though I hit the right button for that one. It was the wrong question I wanted. But so here is the perception of Meriden, and do we get a bad rap?
This question also relates to Meriden's image. Does Meriden get a bad rap in comparison to the rest of the state? To what degree are the city's challenges a matter of perception, and what, if anything, should city government do about it?
Crystal Blake. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm not gonna lie, we were kind of deciding who was taking it when we trained.
Yeah, they're not paying attention.
Yeah, does Meriden get a bad rap in comparison to the rest of the state? To what degree are the city's challenges a matter of perception, and what, if anything, should city government do about it?
Okay, so personally, I'm a mom, born and raised here in Meriden. I'm a product of Meriden Public Schools, as is my daughter. To me, Meriden is home. I think Meriden has come a long way from when I grew up here. I'm also in Area 3, so we have a beautiful east side, I think, with a lot of growth opportunity. Would I love to see more downtown? Absolutely. We have beautiful parks in our city that are comparable. Would I love to see our downtown like other downtowns of neighboring? Absolutely, but I think in time we can get there. I also think our high school state champs, so a lot of surrounding towns can't say that, our football team. And our sports at many of our different high schools and our middle schools are very enticing. I think our activities that we have in the community for our youth, youth programming, even at the middle school level, extracurricular activities are thriving. So I think comparable to other towns, Meriden is doing just great, but there's always room for growth.
I'm sorry, can we finish your time?
You certainly can. My apologies.
I keep forgetting to introduce myself, so I'm going to tell everyone. I also just want to add that the perception that Meriden is not a great community because of, whatever reasons those might be, it lies in how we speak about our city, how we see our city, and if we're not being positive, the negative comments on social media, the negative comments that people make in the press, there's no community that you're going to find that everybody's happy with everything that happens there. But we have to love this community. We have to speak heavily about how much we love it, why we are all still here, and why we think it can be great. If we're not doing that, then we're not doing our part. And why are you, that native person, living in this community?
It took balls for her to say
Sean
that.
McDonald. My family came from Ireland to this country in the late 50s, and we lived over on Wall Street, and that's how far my ties go back to this lovely town that we live in. I'm very proud to be a Meriden resident. The thing that upsets me the most is that I hear people call Meriden the dirty den, and some people are proud of that. Well, I'm not proud of that. Our city is dirty. It's blight infested, Residents need to start taking responsibility for their lawns, their properties. The city needs to start holding landlords accountable for their actions. We have to start enforcing blight laws. Blight laws were made to be enforced. So if the city doesn't clean up itself, how are we going to lure businesses in here? Yes, Ms. Jelks, you are correct. We have to take pride in our city, but it starts with accountability.
Okay, so let's break that down. So again, first of all, let's just get to the realistic part of it. So a certain person's perception is their reality. Okay, that's just the bottom line. And what Crystal Blake was saying, which really didn't answer the question at all, other than the fact that she's proud, and the fact that I don't know if people are screaming to get into Meriden because of our state championship, which we should be proud of. But I don't think that's why they're trying to get in here. People are trying to get into Meriden, if you look at the statistics of it, is because most of it is getting into affordable housing. So let's just be realistic about it. But the perception is the reality. And it took balls for friggin' Sonia Jelks, of all people, to answer this question, to say we need to speak positive of our city. Again, and I'll go back to this resolution. Now, this is the name of the resolution. Resolution declaring racism a public health crisis in the city of Meriden. I mean, I don't know. If I'm on the outside looking in, if I'm looking at what our city government is doing, and they're putting out resolutions that say racism is a public health crisis, I don't know. I maybe it's just me, but if I'm living outside of Meriden and I'm a minority especially, and I read that, I'm like, I'm not coming to friggin' Meriden. What are they talking about? And if you dare to actually click into the resolution, it's all racism is a root cause of poverty and constricts economic mobility. It's like, are you kidding me? That's supposed to bring everyone up. That's supposed to set a good tone. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. It is absolutely ludicrous. We could go on. Racism causes persistent discrimination and disparates outcomes in many areas of life, including housing, education, employment, criminal justice, all of which are a social determinant of overall individual health. What are you talking about? And I've been asking this question from day one since this came out. Tell me one thing in Meriden where that is true, where white people are given a special preference over minorities. Because our housing, everyone goes off the same rules. Education, everybody gets the same education. Employment, last time I checked, it was illegal to discriminate. And criminal justice. Listen, you break the law, you break the law. It doesn't matter what color you are. You're getting arrested. It is absolutely crazy to me. But these are the things they passed. These are the things they passed. And they're asking us, and Sonia Jelks has the balls to turn around and say, well, if we're not being positive, you're the most negative person here. And being the majority leader of the council, what you say matters. What you do matters. Studies have linked racism to negative health and death outcomes, including interactions with the criminal justice system as a leading cause of death of black men. No, it's fucking not. And we had Michael Cardona, the deputy mayor, sitting in this on the screen here, trying to sit there and sell us a bunch of bullshit on it with this University of Michigan study. which again, we've talked about in great details on this show, how they linked 6 different categories into one just to get close here. It's not. But this is the kind of positive stuff you're putting out of the city of Meriden. So when we talk about, again, talking positively about Meriden, that's not talking positively about Meriden, not Connecticut, or not the country. And if you do feel this way about Meriden, if you do feel these things are happening, you know what, Sonia Johnson, what are you doing here? Go back to Georgia. Go wherever it is you spent your time in COVID. For her to say, again, anybody could have grabbed the microphone for that other than her. Because she is the most negative person in this city when it comes to the perception of Meriden. Because, again, it's not the reality. Let's be perfectly clear. That is not the reality of Meriden. This kind of nonsense is not what's going on here. Meriden is a wonderful place to live, work, and raise your family. It is phenomenal. But again, when you have leaders of your city talking this kind of nonsense, and the outside of the city looks at it, who the hell is going to come here? Why would you come here? Why? To me, she's told us that our police department has a brutality problem. And, they like to sit there and talk about facts. Well, none of the facts supported the housing moratorium. Facts didn't play in that. Didn't come out to what they wanted. Well, your facts, when you did all these studies and the police department showed you all these facts about why you don't need a CRB, you decided to do it anyways. You didn't care about the facts because you only care about facts when they support your position. When the facts don't support your position, you just immediately turn to, well, just in case. Just in case. And if I was Mike Carabetta when he talked about the housing, I would have turned around and said, do you know what, Sonia? We did it just in case. Just in case it did. Just like your CRB facts. Just in case it did, even though it did not. Now, the thing about the housing moratorium, that was voided out. They pushed forward with the CRB, knowing full well, and Sonia Jelks, like a month later, stated the real objective of the CRB. And something we talked about in great detail when they passed it. This is just the shell. This is the base that you're seeing. The CRB is just the base. Now it's set. So the concrete is set. And now which everything else is going to be built upon. And Sonia Jelks, literally a month later, turned around and said, well, we're going to re-examine to see what else we can have them look at. And what powers we need to give them. Because remember, all that they need to add to their duties is a vote in the city council. Now that the CRB is already formed, if they want subpoena power, if they want to be able to subpoena our police officers, all they need is a vote at city council. Another reason why this November is so damn important. Don't buy their nonsense. Don't buy it. It is all going to be built to have complete control over our police department because that's the Democrats' ultimate goal. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't want to say all Democrats. I don't think Bruce Fontanella wants to go that far. But I would say everybody else does. Where everyone else on the Democrat side does. They want complete and utter control of the police department. Because again, when it comes to liberals, and I hate saying we talked about it on the show before, but we talk about what liberals stand for. Liberals want complete control over your life. And I'll even add some Republicans do. Because I know Republicans would be just as happy controlling your life as Democrats would. Because with control comes other things for them that they will get themselves rich on. When they have too much control and too much power, you end up like Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., everyone already knows, I don't like really anybody down in Washington, D.C. There are very few senators and Congress people that I would trust. And there's not many on either side. Now, the problem here at home is that, again, we have Republicans that don't have a spine and don't hold true to their values that voted for crap like this because somebody cried. So he felt bad. So I voted for it. Even though it goes against all my values. Goes against everything I believe in. We need to get these people out of office. They're very dangerous. They're dangerous. And I know most people don't like it when I use that. But let's just call it for what it is. Because it's never going to end if we allow this vicious cycle to continue on election after election. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. All right, let's continue on. I got to go to my second page here. 12. And so this next one's, again, social justice and the Columbus statue, which I found this exchange quite interesting, which is why I chose it. Here we go.
Yes, in recent years, there's been a heightened awareness in regards to matters of social justice. And so this goes to the issue of a statue honoring Christopher Columbus. Should it remain outside of City Hall, or if it should be removed and put elsewhere to a location like Columbus Park?
Is it less offensive at City Hall than Columbus Park?
Okay. What I'll say to this, that statue was given to the city of Meriden by the Unison Club. Back when Columbus Day was celebrated. So it's not a dig on somebody else. It's actually quite an honor to have it still standing there because it does represent something to some of the citizens of the people. It's not meant to disparage anybody or anything. And I don't think we should be moving statues and things that are directly reflect the history of our country and our city because they weren't put there to do anything other than celebrate something that they were proud of at that time. Yes, years have gone on. People feel differently about those things, but you can't learn anything if you're not looking at your past. You can't correct mistakes made in the past if you're not looking at it and learning about it. So I am not for moving the statue to Columbus Park or anywhere else or renaming Columbus Park. It's just something that I think was given to the city by a club. They were very proud of it, and I think it should stay where it stands. Thank you.
From the Democrats, Joe Scaramuza. So, my parents are Italian immigrants. My father's here tonight. I have no issue. That statue does not represent my heritage or the pride in my heritage, right? So there are plenty of Italians that we could celebrate that honor my heritage, my parents' heritage. And this is the thing, I think when we talk about diversity and equity and inclusion, we like to manufacture outrage around, oh, this is offensive to me. Like, and how can, we basically tell people they can't, how they can or cannot feel, and how they can and cannot be offended by something. And I think we need to, as empathetic as we could be, we can't walk in their shoes. So if there's a real contingent of citizens that have an issue with that statue on that property, I, as an Italian American, have no issue moving it off property.
That had to be the most spineless answer I've ever heard. That really had to be the most spineless. Again, and I hate the fact that I'll give Joe credit. He answered a lot of questions, but he probably shouldn't have, because he flip-flopped. He was talking out of both sides of his mouth, really, on everyone that he put out there. I have no issue with it. And, we're letting people manufacture outrage. Yes, because of what your answer was just there. If there's really a contingent of people that want it out of there, we should move it. Because why? Because you care about one person's feelings over the other? What about the Unison Club? Are you afraid of offending them? They donated it and they gifted it to the city. Do their feelings all of a sudden don't count? Do other Italian Americans who want it to stay where it is, do they not count? So let me ask you this. In the let's say the grand scheme of having equality, inclusion, and whatever else nonsense they say, what does that even friggin' mean? And whose equality are we looking for? What are we making equal? What are we making inclusive? Because it seems like right now, it's whatever minorities want. Just say it. And white liberals are going to sit there and say, okay, we sorry. We'll move it. Or we'll do this. We'll do that. It's like, no. That was a gift from the Unison Club because they cared about Christopher Columbus and they wanted to celebrate it and put it there. And it's there. Why? Because someone cries? You're right, Joe. We are allowing them to manufacture outrage. And you're letting them dictate to you what you can and cannot be offended of. If you're offended, tough. Be offended. As Candace Owens said, get a helmet. Life's tough. Are you freaking kidding me? We're going to let others dictate what we can or cannot be offended by. If you're offended by it, you know what? Tough. Be offended. It hasn't offended anybody in the decades that it's been sitting there. And all of a sudden now, it's like Lou Graham, been on the city council for over a decade. Been living in the city pretty much his whole life. And now all of a sudden, he's afraid to let his son walk out the door because he might get shot or beat up by the police. Are you fucking kidding me? And we allow comments like that to go unanswered at city council. Another reason why some need to be thrown out. At some point, someone's got to call bullshit and say enough is enough. You don't like it, tough. Because at the end of the day, let's say the truth here. Who are we not willing to offend? And who are we okay with being offended? And if you think for a second that I'm going to bow to the social justice bullshit, you are absolutely out of your mind. Because you're not helping anybody there. When you're letting people play victim, you are doing no service to them or their cause or their future. When you're sitting there telling them, it's okay if you're offended, we'll take care of it for you. No. Learn to be offended. I'm offended every election season when people go out there and vote for these friggin' idiots. I'm offended. Are you going to change it for me? No, because you don't care. We got to knock it off with this nonsense. We got to knock it off with the nonsense. The government has no obligation for making someone's economic equality, having employment equality, anything that has to do with individuality. The only thing the government is supposed to do is give equal opportunity to every citizen to live their own life, to pursue their own dreams. That is the only thing our government is supposed to uphold. Other than that, stay the hell out of the way and let people live their lives. Let us live our lives. Because I got to tell you, I know a lot of minorities, and we don't have issues with each other because we're adults and we know how to friggin' coexist with each other because we're all the friggin' same. We all have the same issues. We all have the same dreams. We have all the same aspirations for our kids. They're all the same. We don't need the government to sit there and start picking and winning winners and losers, especially based on the color of their skin, of our skin. I remember, where did I hear that before? Who said that before? Oh, that's right, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King would be rolling in his freaking grave, listening to people like Sonia Jelks, Ms. Cortez, Thomas Eddy, Rhodey, Graham, Cardona. He'd be rolling in his grave. Because you know what, Alan, you're 100%. Not only do we not have time for that bullshit, neither did Martin Luther King. And it's a disgrace what they're doing to his movement. It's an absolute disgrace. Oh, I'm going to have myself a heart attack. Okay, so that is the perception. So now, again, we understand now why we have the perception. So people have the perception of Meriden. Because that is the perception of Meriden. All these things that we've been talking about, all these negative things that are coming straight from City Hall, and they're wondering why we have a negative perception out there to the rest of the state. On top of the fact that we have blighted properties everywhere, vacant stores everywhere. You know, that doesn't help the cause either. Is that a good spin we have putting out there to the rest of the state? I don't think that's the vision that they want. But again, people, we allow this vicious cycle to continue on and on and on, and you've allowed it to happen for the last 35 years. Having these Democrats running this city is absolutely mind-boggling to me. Especially since every city... Let me digress there. We'll get into that in a little while. All right, so the next one we're going to talk about is taxes and, of course, our good wasteful spending that our city loves to do. Here we go, number 9.
Do you agree with plans to construct permanent bathrooms and a maintenance facility on the Meriden Green? Also, there was a proposal about another apartment building behind the amphitheater. Do you support additional development on the green?
Sonia Jelks didn't even know about that.
The Green has won 11 awards already from all different kinds of organizations. We're on the map for one of the finest downtown greens in the state of Connecticut, plus the amphitheater. If you haven't been down there yet, you really need to go and see what we've done. As far as the facility that's been proposed by the flood control project, it's for a permanent bathroom for everyone, for all the concerts and major events that we have at the Green. It's for storage for the equipment that has to be brought in every day, trucked in and out by the Parks Department. Storage for the farmers market and the this summer concert series. We have a lot of supplies that go in there. This is an integral part of the Green. The new portion that's being established has mechanicals and electric that has to be put in this building as well. It's also bonding funds that have been left over. Not 1 cent of taxpayers' money. It's bonding money that's already been acquired and will pay for the whole thing. Thank you.
Who pays for bonding? There, Mike Brody?
Mike Zakrzewski. I agree that we do need bathrooms down at the Green, but when I went to the council meeting and I sat there and they approved another $700,000 to bring just under $1.5 million for a bathroom and storage building, it just sounded like it was an incredible price tag. One of the councilors mentioned that we had to put in for a grant for $700,000. Well, I will tell you, I did a lot of grants for the police department, and I do know one thing: if you appropriate the money in advance, you'll never get the grant. That's just the way it is. The state will look at it, and I believe the mayor even said this at the meeting. He was talking about it. The state will look at it and say, well, they don't really need the money. They've already approved it. So a motion to table it was put out there, which was voted down. The simple fact is we could have waited till November to get an answer. This was July, and I drove past the Green on my way here, and I don't see one stick in the ground marking out why we had to do this so quickly. Thank you.
So, of course, they're not going to wait till November because they want to pat themselves on the back now. They want to use this to campaign on. And Mike Rohde, again, this is just classic Mike Rohde. This is classic liberal thinking. Well, the money's already been allocated through bonding. So in case nobody knows, so he said not a single penny of taxpayer money is going to be used in this because it's already been allocated. Sir, in case you forgot, it is the taxpayers that have to pay the bonds back to the state with interest. With interest. $1.4 million to build a little building for bathrooms? Are you out of your mind? You could build a mansion for that. I don't care what kind of mechanics need to be put in there. This is absolutely unbelievable. And he's again, taxpayers, citizens, listen to what he's saying. He's telling you that don't worry about it. We're just going to bond everything. We're just going to bond everything. You have to pay that back with interest. It's easy for them to just give that money back and say, we don't need this. God forbid we ever did that, right? Well, we don't need this money, so we're not going to spend it. We're not going to spend $1.4 million. We're going to go for a grant for $700,000, which we don't have to pay back. But the city doesn't care about that. Mike Rohde doesn't care about that, just like Mike Rohde didn't care about the bridge to nowhere. As the architect called it, Rohde's Bridge, $8.1 million that we have to now spend tens of thousands of dollars every year to maintain it. Not to point out that in 10 years, there's going to be a lot of maintenance that has to happen to it that the taxpayers are on the hook for. It's a beautiful green. You didn't need the bridge because that just added tax dollars that the city's going to have to pay for in the long run. Because again, none of them think long term. None of them think long term. It's one of the worst characteristics to have in elected officials are those that have absolutely no vision for the future. They just worry about now. What's going to get them reelected now? That's what they care about. And Rohde will tell you all the time, is bonded. It's only $2 here. It's $2 there. It's only an additional $3 here, $5 here. He loves to say that. In the grand scheme of things, it's only an additional $3 on your taxes. Yeah, we'll multiply that by the hundreds of damn things that you want to do, and that's good, a couple $100, $200, $300 every year that your taxes go up. That is liberal thinking. It is liberal policies that you need to understand why they are so dangerous for you, the taxpayer, and why you need to pay attention to what they are doing and what they are saying. Now, again, am I going to sit there and say that Republicans are perfect? No. No, far from it. Unless they're Republicans like me, I guess. Then I'll give them a thumbs up. But let's be honest with each other. It's not working right now. It's just not working. And how many times are we going to go through this? How many times are we going to let people like Mike Rohde sit there and bullshit you? And you're going to fall for it. It's absolutely craziness. And he says it with a straight face because you know what? He believes that. That is liberal math. Well, we already approved it years prior, so, it's not claiming your taxes anymore. That money we already have it, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. No. You worry about it until it's spent. And when you don't need to spend it, you just don't spend it. All right, final one. We're going to get into taxes. Here we go. Last one.
To mix things up a little bit, I hear complaints that our taxes are too high. Yet looking at I see that Meriden at 32.99 mils plus 35 in downtown, but Middletown's at 35.7 plus an increment. Cheshire is at 34.32 above us. Berlin is at 34.31 against us. What is your opinion on the level of taxation in Meriden at this point?
This answer was a
With
travesty.
the last, Mike Rohde here, with the last reval, we were able to drop our mill rate about 10 points. And we are in the mix of cities like ours that have the same demographics and so forth. We're pretty much in the middle of what taxation is. You find some of the wealthier towns are lower taxes because they have more money to spend, the Fairfield County and so forth. But I think we've done a pretty good job. We used to be worse off than we are relative to other communities, but I think we've gradually over time evened that out. And I think if you look at all the cities that are demographic, we're pretty competitive with all of them for taxes.
If I could just add just very quickly, Chad Cardillo, I think it's important also to look at the total tax burden that's going on a homeowner or a renter, because you talk about mill rate, but mill rate's only part of it, right? It's the total amount that the house is valued as well. When you look at Cheshire, right, you say that their mill rate is higher than us, but the average home in Cheshire is also valued much higher than Meriden. So the total tax burden for somebody in Cheshire would be higher than Meriden. So if we look at the total tax burden, and it's, it gets in the weeds, but it's important because that's what's coming out of somebody's pocket. We have to look at the fact that Meriden really does, if you look at our surrounding towns, sits really lower than or right at the middle of most of the towns around us on total tax burden.
I just want to point out that earlier tonight, I believe there was a comment made about Democrats, just raising taxes and not caring about taxes. We went 3 years prior to COVID not raising taxes because we understood the burden that was placed on citizens.
That's not the biggest crock of shit I ever heard in my life.
Assess where we should be at that point. We are all people very interested in being able to afford to be here, and we constantly look at that. If it wasn't for Democrats keeping an eye on projects like this, I think you would have higher taxes.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Carabetta.
looking at the town examples you gave, that's comparing apples to oranges a bit. It's just in sheer population size. You take we'll go with Cheshire. Their mill rate may be higher, but as stated, their housing costs are more, so they're bringing more money in, but they're also better with their money because they can be, because they don't have all of the people that we have. You know, they have a completely 100% volunteer fire department. We can't do that. We have too many people for that to be a question for us. So we have to put more money out in public services in most of those towns. The police, your fire, ambulance. Board of Ed, because there's more students. So I think you really got to take a look if you're trying to compare and see that, you know, year over year, how much are we paying in taxes and when does it stop? Is there a top line where we can just stop raising the taxes?
Very well.
That had to be the worst friggin' answer I've ever heard in my entire life. And the fact that Republicans let Sonia Jelks get away with what she said was mind-boggling to me. I'm sitting in the back of the room, almost losing my shit. Like, how is nobody saying what is obviously true when it comes to what she just said? Let's step back and let's see what Rhodey said. Rhodey said we're about average, which we are on as far as big cities. Now, the things about the small cities, Cheshire, Wallingford, Hamden, the ones that he was kind of mentioning, Cheshire hasn't had their reval yet. Cheshire's reval is this year. So Cheshire's home prices are going to go through the roof, and you're going to see their mill rate drop. So it's a disingenuous question to begin with. And I know Tom Walsh knows that. Hamden doesn't have theirs to 2024. So yeah, they're going to be higher now because their houses are appraised lower. Right now, Meriden is appraised at Cheshire levels. So of course we're going to be lower. And when Cheshire goes and has their reval this year, you're going to watch their mill rate drop. But the one that friggin' blew my mind is Sonia Jelks. Two things actually. I want to get what Rhodey said. Rhodey said, oh, we were able to drop our mill rate 10 points. True. Because, again, we had such high revals. But did anyone notice where we're at now? We're already at 34. We're already halfway back in only 2 years. What normally would have taken us to go from 30 mils to 40 mils, on average, historically, has been 7 to 8 years. It's taken us 7 to 8 years, historically, to go from a mill rate of 30 to 40. Do you know how long it's going to take us at this rate of spending? 2 more years. 4 years. And you're going to be paying the same amount on a mill. You're going to be in the same mill rate, except your house is going to be worth 40% more. So your taxes are going up that much more. That's number one. That's case number one. Their spending is out of control. So they need to do something about that. Second is what Sonia Jelks said. And again, the fact that Mike Carabetta gave this comment and did not address this, it absolutely floored me. If anyone remembers, and I told everyone this, that they were going to use this, and they need to smack him as soon as they possibly could. She said that the mill rate did not increase for 3 years. Well, that's not technically true. It was 2 years. They had set the mill rate, and then they had 2 years where they didn't raise it. But what they won't tell you is, well, spending didn't go down. Spending went up 3 to 5% year after year. So my question would have been like, that's strange. If spending went up 3 to 5% year after year, how did the mill rate not go up? But Sonia Jelks isn't going to tell you that we received millions of dollars in state and federal funding due to COVID. She's not going to tell you that we had a $3.5 million check come in from Eversource. They use those millions of dollars to offset those spending increases. So she's straight out lying. Well, technically she's not lying. She's just being very dishonest about the reasons why the mill rate did not go up. It's not because of Democrats' fiscal responsibility. We know what their fiscal responsibility, what they mean by that. Spending millions of dollars downtown and just willing to spend tens of millions of dollars more in just throwing money at the problem, hoping that it's going to fix it. She knew damn well why the mill rates didn't go up. But do you know the problem is? The public doesn't know why. The average mom and pop does not understand why. The average citizen has no idea. And the fact that Republicans let her get away with that was disgusting. And they did a disservice to every resident of the city. I was appalled by their answer. Who gives a crap about what frickin' Cheshire's doing? I would have immediately have gone after Sonia Jelks on that. And you guys gave her a free pass. Unbelievable. So let's give everybody a grade. Let's give everybody a grade. Mike Rohde. I gave him a C. One, he got Republicans gave him an opportunity to smack Republicans right away with Elaine's Carriotti's comment on the first one, where Republicans giving up on downtown. We left it there for him. That was a hanging curveball. He hit it out of the park. The rest of it, whatever he said was nonsense. Chad Cardillo, I thought, did very well. Chad Cardillo, I will give a B+. Because I think he came prepared. I think he knew what he wanted to say. He was very articulate, and he delivered it very well. Misner, I tell you what, I feel bad for you in Area 4. If you live in Area 4, I feel really bad for you because I wouldn't vote for either one of these fucking people. I wouldn't vote for either one. I think it's all ridiculous over there in Area 4. You got shit candidates to choose from. I'm sorry. So I gave her an F. She answered the first question, which she didn't even really answer it. And then we got, who was next in line? Then you had Crystal Blake. I gave her a D. She didn't say much, but she never does. She mentioned the one comment, she didn't even answer the question. But she didn't say anything stupid, so I gave her a D. Joe Scaramuzzo, I'll tell you, I give him a C+, because he had the confidence to go up there and say what he said, but it was complete and utter nonsense. And again, when you talk out of both sides of your mouth and you don't have a spine, no, you don't have, again, and I said it here when he was here, is my one concern for him, is do you have a backbone? Do you have the ability to say what needs to be said, even when you know your own party is going to go after you? And he proved, which is why I say these things are very important to watch. He proved and showed he is not capable of doing that. He has no spine and he will cave. So, no. And then Sonia Jelks, I gave her a D just because she showed up and she actually spoke. But what she said was complete and utter nonsense and very dishonest with the people on reason why things happen the way they do. So, now let's go to the Republican side. Isabel, I gave a C. I think she did good. She delivered what she needed to be deliver. I wish she had expanded on the senior center a little bit more, being so involved in it. But it is what it is. Dan Zabrowski, I gave a C. Again, I think he answered the question that he wanted to answer. Nothing really exciting. Again, my star of the show, Mike Zacharewski. I gave an A. I think he came, he delivered, he knew what he wanted to say. He was very well spoken. He was very knowledgeable on the things he wanted to talk about. Again, I give him an A. I think he did the best job out of everybody. Mike Carabetta, listen, being a sitting city councilor, I'll give you a D plus, because most of what you said was other stupidity, and the fact that you let her get away with everything while you're the leader of that table. No. I really feel bad for Area 4 this year. I really do. It's just a clusterfuck over there. Elaine Cariotti, I'll give a C. It's tough. The things she wanted to talk about, you can't fit into a 2-minute segment or even a 1-minute segment. So I get what she wanted to talk about, but that's just not the forum to do it. So I'll give you a C because, again, you didn't kill yourself. And Sean, I'll give a D. One, he looked angry to me. And half of what he said, I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about, to be completely honest. I hope he comes on the show and explains it. I hope he comes. I know he's very hesitant to come on the show because he's afraid he's going to get attacked. You're not. Listen, we're going to have the same conversation that everybody else has. We're going to say it. We may disagree on certain things. We may not disagree. I think we'll probably agree on more than we disagree on. But again, what things he was saying made absolutely no sense. So, and again, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth and say that, we need to be fiscally responsible, but you know what? Since I work at the Board of Ed, it's a disservice. We need to give more money. That's what I got out of it. So, and very, very interesting. So I gave him a D because again, to me, it wasn't coherent, but that's just my take on it. So that's where it's at. That's where I'm at. We got 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks before Election Day. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to get people elected in office that's going to change this nonsense. You heard it. Let's go spend $1.4 million on a bathroom with a garage attached to it. That's crazy. Again, buildings, apartments on the backside of the green behind the amphitheater. Sonia Jelks didn't even know about it. About 8 months ago? She had no clue about it. The majority leader of the city council had no idea that there were plans to put up. There were plans to put up apartments behind it. Who do we contact if we want to volunteer to help in polling stations? Listen, connect with anybody. You can connect with Elaine Cariotti. She's the chair of the Republican Party. I'm sure she could point you in the right direction. It's a great way of getting community service hours. Or if you like a certain candidate, listen, volunteer for their campaign. Contact the candidates you want to help out. I think that's always good. They could all use help. Trust me, they could all use help doing anything. So it is a tough. Listen, I have the utmost respect for everybody that's running for city office. I know how tough it is. And I know how tough some of these, some people may win or lose by razor thin margins. I have been there. I get it. All I could do is say, do your best. Use the last 2 weeks to get your message out there. Go knock on doors. Go knock on doors. If you want to get things done, go knock on doors. That's how you win elections, especially local elections. So, listen, we got 2 more weeks of this. I think we have this show coming up. Yeah, so we have the upcoming show on the 29th. And then we have a show on the 5th, and that's it. And then we're done. And then we got election. We'll do one more after election, just to recap. But guys, time's getting thin. Make sure that these videos are getting out to make sure people are being informed on where candidates stand. I think it's imperative, and it's imperative that we all do our part to make sure that we're spreading the message also. That it is time for change. It's time for change. Hopefully we'll get there. But so we'll be back on Sunday. Like I said, we're going to go over to the mayor's race a little bit. And I believe Board of Ed, we'll get through the Board of Ed stuff because that will be interesting. I'm very interested to see what the Board of Ed has to say. But until then, guys, I love each and every one of you. Thank you guys for joining. I know it's having a Sunday. We had to turn around and split it up. There's just way too much to talk about. But it's imperative that you hear it. And it's imperative that you understand, especially if you're not involved in politics and if you're not, acutely aware of what these candidates are saying and doing and what they've been doing in office. If you're not aware of it, and again, if Republicans are letting Democrats get away with that kind of nonsense, of spewing that kind of nonsense, if you're not going to hear it from them, where are you going to hear it? Where are you going to hear the pushback? You're going to hear it right here. Because we're not going to let any, not even just Democrats, we're not going to let any public official get away with trying to be dishonest with the citizens. We're just not going to stand for it. Again, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, we just don't allow that to happen. So until Sunday, I love you guys. I will see you all again this Sunday, 7 o'clock, same great time, same great channel. Good night.
As noted in the
Emanation, and a million faces formed together, made for elevation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender faith as I can fire that never burst to embers. The voice of the unheard, love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up, heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up, heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic static. Call me a fanatic, it's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up, it's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping and the shadows could be making history.